as an adult as well. All right. So our program this afternoon will deal with stress and anxiety. And as I said before, we went as far as making sure we got someone who is an expert in the field. So we have Cassim here with us this afternoon. He's going to be telling you a lot more about himself once he comes forward. But what I do ask is that you know, give your undivided attention, note your questions that you want to ask, because there's going to be a segment where you can ask your questions. You're going to be able to interact with him as much as possible. And, this is someone with a huge amount of experience. While we're speaking at the back, he was talking about going into schools and working with kids. So he's on the streets. He knows what's happening. And so I don't think we could have found a better person to come in and to share with you. All right? So I'm going to hand over to him, but I think I'll just pray for us to, we've just ended one segment. So just bow your heads with me as we pray to go into this segment of the afternoon. Father, we want to thank you for what you've done for us so far. We've gone through our morning service or afternoon. We've had lunch. We've just studied with Elder Lane and looked at an important part of our doctrine. And as we're about to now look at an issue which affects many of us, Lord, we pray that you will help us to understand it and to receive it well, and not to even be anxious as we speak about it, but to accept it as a message or a tool to use to help those who need help and to even help ourselves. So guide us, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so we do have an online audience as well, so we do want to say welcome to those who are watching online from wherever you are. And do feel free to ask your questions in the chat as well. We'll be monitoring, and I'll filter them to you, and we can also answer. So I'll hand over to Cassim at the moment, and he'll share a lot more about himself.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much, everybody. I really, really, really appreciate it. So I just want to check that this is working, because I want to show you some things. Yes, okay. So thank you so much. As everybody saw, my name is Cassim, but you can call me Cass. And as you saw from my rather crazy memes, I always like to start off by saying to everybody, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a minister, I'm not somebody who is in a position of power, I'm just the average person. And as I'm going to tell you today a little bit about my story, you'll understand why on a Saturday, even though I'm not supposed to be working, I wanted to come here and speak to you. And I particularly wanted to come here because, of course, the vast majority of the people in this room are from the black community. And you'll understand why I have a particular passion, particularly for the black community, around this topic of stress, anxiety, and talking really about things that you're struggling with. So let me start off by sharing this. I'm actually going to start off by sharing something with you that recently happened. So my mum has 7 children. My mum had me when she was 14. And recently, my mum has lived in the same council house since I was a child. And she moved house recently, and she called me and she said, Cassim, come and get your stuff, all your books, because if you don't come and get them, I'm going to chuck them away. I said, Mum, I don't have any books. She said, yes, you do, son. When you were a boy and you were growing up, you used to scribble and do lots of writing in books and stuff like that. And I went to my mum's house, and I found lots of books, and I had written in them. And I wanted to start off by sharing with you some of the things that I found in one of my books when I was 12 years of age, because I think it will set a really interesting tone for the rest of this session. Here we go. Does life get easier? Is having lots of friends important as an adult? Is it true that all you want to be is a kid after living adult life? Why does it feel like I'm going nowhere in my life no matter how hard I try? How can I bring myself to be a better man? Does pain ever heal? Will I ever get anywhere in life? How do I get a girlfriend? Why do I hate my mum? How do I get rid of all this? How can I get rid of all of this hate in my heart? Is it okay to get some bad grades? What should I do to stay motivated? Let me explain something to you. I don't remember writing any of this. I don't remember writing any of this. And the reason why I wanted to start off by sharing that with you is because I work for an organization called Kooth. Kooth is the largest online mental health company in the UK. Most of you probably haven't heard of it, and the reason you haven't heard of it is because I spend most of my time going into schools and talking to kids directly. And I cover all of Southwest London. So I cover Merton, Sutton, Croydon, Wandsworth, Richmond, and Kingston. As I'm sure you can understand, those are very different areas, right? And the thing about my job is that I get to go to private schools, selective schools, schools where all the kids might be autistic, or they may be just like literally like 50 kids in that specific school because they have special needs. I go to colleges, I go to universities. I do all the training for organizations like CAMS. CAMS is the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Services. So basically, if your child has like ADHD or something like that, and they're going to get diagnosed, CAMS are the people who diagnose them. I train GPs. I train basically anybody who comes in contact with kids in any capacity. So a lot of my training is teachers and people like that. And so part of the reason why I'm particularly passionate about this is because the last people who tend to know about some of the things that I've just shared with you are the parents. You usually only know something is going on with your nephew, with your best friend's son, with your daughter, with one of the children in the family. The only time you know is when something terrible happens. The school calls you in and they say something like, one of the kids has been self-harming. The kids call you and say, ... is not turning up to school. And you're like, that can't be right. And here's what I hear a lot. I hear things like this, but they were on church on Sunday. They attend church every day. So what do you mean that they're self-harming? That makes no sense, right? And so part of the reason why I shared a little bit about my story is that what I've basically come to believe is something that part of the reason why I don't spend most of my time with parents is because whenever I talk to parents about their kids struggling, unfortunately as parents, we have the tendency, and I have 4 kids, we have the tendency to blame ourselves. I must have done something wrong. What did I miss? Where did I go wrong? And what I've come to tell you today is that there are certain things that your kids just don't want to tell you. And it's got nothing to do with your parenting. It's got nothing to do with you as a person. And I will bring it back to you as people. I know in this room, some of you, there are things you haven't told your parents. I know there is. There are things you know your mom. You know what your dad is like. If you go and tell your dad about something that's going on with you. I remember when I was 19, I went up to my mum and I said to her I was depressed. Do you know what my mum said to me? She said, let me tell you something, Kawesa. My mum calls me by my surname. She says, let me tell you something, Kawesa. Black people don't get depressed. That's a white people problem. Don't bring that juju in this house. That's what my mum said to me. And that day, I learned something very important, which is part of the reason why I wanted to come here and speak to you. I learned that there are some things that your parents can do for you, but there are some things that they can't do for you. Not because they're bad people, but you may be so progressive and so liberal and so knowledgeable about certain areas that it's not that you're better than your parents, but your knowledge, you can make better decisions based on the knowledge and the information that you have. If that makes sense, right? And so part of the reason, as I say, I wanted to come and talk to you, is that I wanted to explain to you that if your young people are struggling with something in their life, our service is completely anonymous and is part of the NHS, which means it's completely free. And if you are finding that you've been trying to get through to that son of yours, he's a teenager, he doesn't want to talk to you, and you know something is going on with him, but he doesn't want to talk to you, And here's what I would say to you. I do 2 assemblies every day. You can imagine how many kids I see. Not yesterday. On Thursday, I did an assembly, and I had 600 kids in Wimbledon College in front of me. So I see a lot of kids. And I asked them all one question when I first began, which is, if all of you were struggling and you needed to go and talk to somebody, who would you go and talk to? Across all 6 of my boroughs, across all of these private schools, universities, do you know the one person all the kids say they will not talk to? Now, how could you possibly know that? How could you know? And what I'm trying to say to you is, a lot of your kids, they're struggling, but they can't tell you. And I'm suggesting to you that at Kuth, they can come and have a chat with us. And we align as an organization under 2 things. One, everything that we teach, we work with the work that we're doing with a young person has to be in line with British values, meaning we can't send them down some ideology or like try to convert them to something. And part of the reason why I'm saying this to you is because a lot of young people are coming to us, and I'm sure you've probably seen it in the church. Their faith has been shaken. Their belief in God has been challenged. You see, their best friend is trans. Their best friend is a lesbian. But the problem is you don't want to know in the household. So what's happening is they're torn because they're like, but I'm told that I should be accepting, but then I am now accepting, but we don't talk about that stuff in the house. So I'm torn. Where do I go? And what they're doing is they're going on Google. We don't want the kids to go on Google because they can go down some very, very dark paths and read stuff that's not really appropriate for them, right? And the second thing about our website that's really useful is that when young people come to us, everything has to be clinically and in line with the NHS. So if we're giving them advice about ADHD, about sexual violence, about prayer, because we actually have a lot of articles about prayer and stuff like that on our website, because so many kids come, we've got a search bar, and a lot of kids search up, how do I pray? Do you know what here's an interesting thing. Do you know what the most common search thing is in Google? Does anyone know? The most common search question, how do I tie a tie? It's the most Googled question, right? So this demonstrates to you that many kids, if your child has never come to you and said to you, how do I tie a tie? I've just shown you they ain't coming to you because they're using Google. And what I'm saying to you is they are asking more bigger questions than that and questions that are very complex. But instead of coming to you and asking you, they don't want to come to you, not because you're a bad person, but they just don't want to talk to you. Now, I always like to start off with my story so I can demonstrate a little bit about part of the reason why I'm so passionate about this. So I was originally born in Uganda. For those of you who are not familiar with Uganda, Uganda is towards the east of Africa, so it's surrounded by countries like Kenya, Tanzania, the Republic of Congo, countries like that. Have we got any sugarcane fans here? Anyone like sugarcane? Yeah, you like sugarcane? No way. Let me ask you something. Have you ever tried passion fruit before? No? Try passion fruit. In Uganda, we have so much passion fruit, okay? So I'm not saying go, but if you want an exotic holiday, I recommend Uganda. And my mum, as I said to you earlier on, had me when she was 14. When she went and told my biological father, his response to me was, he's not my child, I don't want anything to do with him, and he abandoned her. My mum then went on to have 7 children. Now, I'm going to stop there in my story a little bit because I want to touch about earlier on, I said to you, did you hear the questions? One of the questions was, why do I hate my mum? People ask me all the time, why did you write that, Cassim? I am the only child that my mum has who has 2 black parents. So my mum is black and my biological dad is white, but all the rest of my siblings are mixed race. And when I was growing up in my household, whilst I knew I was loved, I never felt like I was part of my family. I felt like the black sheep of the family, quite literally, right? And here's the thing. I only found this out recently. So I was writing a book about my story, and I was telling my mum about what I was writing in the book. And a lot of people have said to me when I was growing up, Cassim, you don't hug your mum, but you're a very huggy person. In my natural element, as an adult, I'm a very huggy person. I love hugging. Love languages, I'm a physical touch. But I don't hug my mum. So as I was writing this book, I was explaining to mum, I'm like, oh yeah, people keep saying to me, like, we don't really hug. And my mum said to me, oh, I think I know why that might be. And I said, why is that? And she said to me, well, you remember for the first year of your life, your grandmother raised you, don't you? I said, what do you mean? My grandmother, basically, when my mum first got pregnant, she wasn't actually going to keep the baby. Her mother, my grandmother, who died of alcohol poisoning at 43, I think it was, convinced my mother to keep the baby, and she raised me for the first year of my life. And I didn't even know. And part of the reason why I'm saying this to you is, stuff is going on around your kids, and with you, even, and you haven't remembered it. You're like, yeah, but Cassim, I was 15 then, come on, I'm a grown man. I'm saying to you, just because the mind might have been educated and progressed, it doesn't mean that the body's forgotten. It doesn't mean that the body... Have you ever, sometimes I go around to my mum's house and my mum says to me, Kawesa, you're always welcome in this house. You know we love you. And I always felt uncomfortable every time my mum said that to me, because do you know what the honest truth is? I did not feel like that's my house. I didn't feel like that was my house. Every time I go into my parents' house, I feel uneasy. Now, I know my mom loves me. I know I'm a grown adult. I shouldn't feel uneasy when I go to see my parents, right? But my body remembers what it was like growing up in that household. So going back to my story. So my mum got pregnant. My biological dad said he didn't want anything to do with me. I then moved from Uganda when I was 7 with my mum to the UK. Now, what I didn't realize, again, and I'd forgotten from my childhood, was my mum left me in Uganda for a year while she came to England. And at that time, she was pregnant, and she was working in mother care and a chicken factory. She said to me when I was writing my book that she had to lie to her employer because you can't work in a factory when you're pregnant. I didn't even know that. So my mum said to me, yeah, I had to lie that I wasn't pregnant because I knew they wouldn't be able to let me continue working, and I didn't want to keep you in Uganda. And so the reason why I'm saying this to you is because a pattern started to emerge in my life, and the pattern was, I don't know if you've ever heard of this word, abandonment. I started to develop this feeling that I didn't want to be abandoned. Now, remember what had already happened with my biological dad? And now my mum has left me in a country by myself, and she didn't even tell me what was happening. I just woke up one day, and my mum wasn't there. That's it. I was with my auntie. And I moved to England, and as if that wasn't bad enough, I was the only black person. We were living in an area of the UK called Devon, a place called Exeter. I was the only black person in my school. And kids used to call me big lips, gorilla lips, monkey. They used to say to me, when I first came to England, this was around when 9/11 had happened. So they were like, you don't belong in this country, you should go home. And just, if that wasn't enough, there was this one boy who would terrorize me. Do you know what he would do? At lunchtime, he would go to the canteen, get a banana, run behind me making gorilla and monkey noises, stand in front of me, eat the banana in front of me, and you know the banana has the skin, the peel. He would take individual peels, chuck them at me, and he would try to stick them underneath my collar. Now, sometimes people say to me, Cassim, come on, man. You should have told your mum. Let me explain something to you. I don't know if any of you can relate to this. One of the reasons I didn't tell my mum is because I know my mum. If I had told my mum that I was being bullied, She would have brought the fire brigade. She would have brought random people off the street. She would have caused me even more trouble than I was already in. So this is why I didn't tell my mum, right? And here is where my story gets even, as if that wasn't bad enough. When I first moved to England, my mum finds out that my biological dad had moved to England years later and is living in East Ham. I'm sure I don't need to tell you, you've already got a sense of what my mum is like. What do you think she did? Of course she found him. Of course she did. You already know what the kind of woman she is. My mum went, found him, okay, said, you need to take responsibility for your son. You need to, it's really important for a son to know who his father is. So my mum arranged for me to go and meet my biological dad. Now, sometimes when I say this to people, particularly students, they say to me, yeah, but Cassim, he was a loser. Why would you want to go and meet him? Let me tell you, I wanted to meet this man. You know, I'm a Chelsea supporter, you know. You see, I'm with friends today, hey? I'm with So you know when we go to Nando's, I like spicy food. If we go to Nando's, I'm going to get extra hot. Basically, what I was looking for was my identity. Because remember, at this time, my mum has met my stepdad, who's a white man, and I'm being brought up in a household where I'm the only black child. And remember, I'm in a place where there are no black people. And so I was looking for my identity. Where do I belong? Who am I? Who actually am I? And this is why I was very excited to meet him. 2 weeks before I was supposed to meet him, and I remember it because it was Guy Fawkes Night. You know Guy Fawkes Night when there's fireworks and everything. My mum came up to me and she said to me, Kawesa, I need to tell you something. Guys, when your mum says that, what does it usually mean? It's bad news. She said, Kawesa, your biological father, he was in a gang and he's been stabbed and he's died. So this then started a chain of events, okay, where I'm going to fast forward this because there's too much stuff that happened for me to bog into. But I ended up starting to get suspended from school, starting fights in school. I started being chased by the police. We would steal quads and go and ride the quads. I stole a car. I drove the car. We would take towels, put petrol on them, take the towels, chuck them at cars on the estate that we used to live at. I was tasered by the police twice. I then started drinking alcohol at 15. I started going into co-op and stealing alcohol. I started fighting with the co-op staff. I then started getting into gambling, Sky Bet. I took out 10 payday loans because I needed to use one payday loan to pay off another one. And then at 19, my mom kicked me out of the house because she was like, I have 6 other kids. The police is around here all the time. I can't take it anymore. Okay? I just can't take it. And really what did it is basically what happened was one day my mum found me in an alleyway. Well, it wasn't my mum. Let me go back. Basically, one day what happened was my neighbor walks her dog every single morning at 6 a.m. She was walking, and I had passed out in an alleyway I didn't make it to my mum's house because I'd been drinking. And my neighbor thought I was dead. Went and called my mum, and my mum came to find me. I went to hospital. I had a blood transfusion. I woke up. My mum was sat next to me, and my mum said this to me, oh, my God, son, you're going to die before me. That day was quite defining for me. Because that day I realized something. If I died that day, you know when you're born, all of us, your mum, your grandparents, your aunties, they're given a birth certificate. Here's what I recognized that day. If something had happened to me, what would my mum also been given that parents should never receive? A death certificate. I spoke to my sisters about this conversation when I was writing my book because I said, if something had happened to me, I think my mum's life would have stopped that day. I don't know if you understand what I mean by that. I don't want to say this. I'm quoting my sisters here. Your mum's favorite. That's what they say. They say this all the time, right? And I don't think my mum's heart could have handled it. I don't think she could have handled it. And in fact, just to give you a demonstration of, my mum so adversely hated bringing things outside of the household, hated so much getting support. When she was 40, she basically had a nervous breakdown. She went on medication. And here's what many of you might, I don't know if any of you know this. Did any of you know that in southwest London, black people are sectioned the most? If you go to any of the hospitals where people are sectioned, you're going to see the vast majority of the people are black. Now, my question was, why? How? That makes no sense. Because if you actually look at the data, black people, we're healthier. We have, because we got more support and community around us. We go to church. We have faith. We have goals because we're trying to usually fight for something. So how can it be that there are more of us in hospital? Anyway, I was speaking to the commissioner, the NHS commissioner. There are many reasons, but one of the reasons she said to me is because things get so bad, they get buried and put underneath the mat, and in one day, and she said, black people do access mental health, but the way we access mental health is through the justice system. You get arrested or sectioned, and now you get the support. Part of the reason why I wanted to come here is because I want to stop that. Shall I tell you what really tipped me over the edge? So you know I said to you, I spend most of my time going into schools. Ever since I started this job, the sign-ups for my company have gone through the roof, of course. Because one, having a male in mental health is like rare, and then having a black male. I've never come across a black person who does my job, just to demonstrate. It just basically doesn't exist. And I'm outside of this job, I'm a counselor. There are no black counselors. Black counselors in the UK, right, make up 0.3%. And before I did that job, I used to work in a school. There are women who are black, but there are no black men in education. None. They don't exist. And so when I was asking her, I was like, what's going on? So I was going to all these schools, and all the English kids were signing up. Because I can see by ethnicity which kids are signing up. Guess what? Every quarter, the commissioner brings me up. I have to report to the commissioner of the NHS, and I have to tell her the figures. I have to explain where have I been, who I've been talking to, all this sort of stuff. She's a black woman. This woman is a fierce woman. You know, she's like me, but woman. She said to me, Cassim, you're doing fantastic, but why are the black boys not signing up? Why are the black girls not signing up? Why are the Asians not signing up? What's going on? Because it's a bit more weird, because remember, when I go to schools, in assemblies, every child is there, right? In an assembly, all kids, and I'm seeing kids from year 6. So I do primary school all the way to university. So if I'm in front of boys, girls, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, you name it, technically speaking, they should be about average-ish, right? That is not how the figures read. So I was like, what's going on? And the commissioner was like pushing me about, you need to find out. I'm going to say something which is very controversial now. I don't know if you can handle it. But I was trying to figure this why. Basically, I discovered that in the black community, the parents have to endorse it. The parents have to endorse it. If you give English kids and tell them they have to sign up to something, guess what they do? They sign up. The black kids, when you tell them to sign up, guess what they say? I need to speak to my parents. So I began to realize, I need to go to speak to the parents. Are you seeing how my path led me to standing here in front of you? Because once you believe it, they're going to sign up. When I was working in schools, do you know how many kids had ADHD? I could see it, black kids, yeah? Because I used to work in a school which was very deprived. And I could tell. And everybody was saying that the kid is dumb and stupid and troubled. I said, no, this child just needs support systems put in place that are specific to him. You are asking the child to change who he is to meet to the school. It's not working. But there is nothing wrong with the boy. Everyone keeps saying that the boy is trouble. The boy is not trouble. Stop saying that. And obviously, you can imagine, I'm like the black one out. I'm the only black staff member. It's like, well, what are you trying to say, Cassim? I'm like, stop making it out that there's something wrong with the kid. There is nothing wrong with the kid, but we're trying to get a kid who's very high energy, stuffed into a school function and into a school system that it just doesn't work for him. And part of the reason why I'm saying this is because in the black community, do you know what one of the issues that we have? I swear to God, I'm going to write a book about this one time because this is one of my big things. We're too nice. Do you know, I was doing training for a woman whose job is to help people get their kids who are like autistic into those special needs schools. She said to me, Cassim, I like you, so I'm going to give you some secrets here. She said, do you know who gets, because basically getting your kid into one of these specialist schools, they get like 1,000 people apply, they've got 50 places. It's like impossible. So I was like, so how do you get him? She said, money, obviously, if you know the right people on money. But she said the second ones, they're the most persistent. They call up every day. The mum calls up. The auntie calls up. They turn up at the thingy. If you go to your GP and you see who gets seen at the GP, it's usually the same people. It is a people where the daughter has called up. The daughter has turned up. The son has turned up. The grandparents have also called up to see if the daughter have you changed anything? Is there any difference in line? I'm saying to you that your kid's not getting support not because they can't, but because you're not persistent enough. You give up too easily. You're all following the line. Oh, you're back, Cassim, I don't want to be trouble. No, be trouble. Is what I'm suggesting. And here's what's ironic. Most of the people who do the heavy lifting are grandparents. It's really funny. When I meet, when I used to work in a school and I used to be there at the meetings, there was almost always a grandparent there. Pushing it, or an auntie, which is very weird to me, because I was like, surely the mother or the dad would be more here than the rest of the family. But it seems, and I was in, have you ever heard of Legacy Zone? There's one in Croydon. Yeah, it's basically a big youth theatre. I was there, and they had like an event for the community. And they, basically they had like drums and kids drumming and stuff like that. And I was speaking to this woman, and she said to me that she was looking after her daughter's grandkids. And I said, why are you looking after your daughter's grandkids? She said, oh, my daughter's just struggling at the moment. She's going through a divorce. She's dealing with some mental health issues, stuff that's going on. Out of the daughters. I'm looking after them at the moment. And she said to me, you're going to see a lot of this. I said, see what? She said, you're going to see a lot more surrogate parenting. I said, what's surrogate parenting? Surrogate parenting is where you basically have become the parent for your daughter's best friend. So, for example, you take your daughter swimming, you know her best friend, then they don't have the money, so guess what you do? You take the girl as well. You'll know that your son's best friend, you know that family's got a lot going on. So every time you go to Chelsea for a game, under 12s, I don't know, under 12s, it costs them 20 quid. Guess what you end up doing? You pay for the ticket and take him as well. Surrogate parenting. I go to a lot of conferences, and the amount of aunties that I meet at these conferences is unreal. I was like, how can I meet so many aunties here? This is crazy. But so many people say to me, oh, I'm here because, my sister, she has a couple of kids. One of them is autistic. One's got ADHD. I know she's struggling, so I thought I'd come and get some information. And why I'm here is I'm saying to you, there are lots of people who could be in this church today, but you're here, which means you're different. You're pioneers, you're leaders, you're serious people. Like, you want to do stuff. You want to move things forward. And that's why I wanted to come and speak to you. Now, I'm going to stop here. Actually, I want to say one other thing, which I found really interesting. Did you know that in southwest London, West African kids do the best academically in their GCSEs? Did you know that? Most people don't know that. It's not publicized, of course. Now, I don't want to get controversial here. For whatever reasons, it's not publicized. But West African girls, specifically, have the highest academics of all the demographics in GCSEs in southwest London. Hold on. There's always a but. But part of the reason why I'm saying this to you is on our website, those girls have the highest presenting issues of self-harm. Now, I was speaking to the clinical team, and I said, why? Why are there so many black girls self-harming? And one girl, I was actually at college in Croydon, she explained it to me, because we just happened to be talking about this conversation. She said, I love my mum. My mum is such a good mum that I can't tell her what's going on with me. I said, huh? Well, if your mum is a good mum, then you should want to tell her. She said, no, I can't. Correct. When you're a really good person, you may not say it, but people's standards go up around you. When you turn up to church every Sunday, you don't even have to say anything, but when people feel like they don't want to come, they think that you're going to remember next week that they didn't come. The pressure, they put their own pressure on me. So what I'm saying to you is the kids, when you come from a West African family where most of those adults have master's degrees, even though the kids aren't saying anything and the parents are wonderful, the kids are picking up the message that we have to be perfect. High standards. Perfectionism. Perfectionism for the girls. Stress. And so the time that the parents in here is when the school unfortunately calls you and tells you your daughter is self-harming or is in the toilets throwing up, and you're like, no, that can't be my daughter. No, impossible. I can't tell you how many times I had that conversation. No, not my son. I'll never forget, there was one event. This was really catalyst. This is actually why I left education. So I called this parent in and I said, I'm really sorry, like, you need to come in. She came in, I was telling her about how the fact that her daughter was going into the bathroom and throwing up her food and stuff like this. Do you know what she said to me in the meeting? Yeah, but how is her grades? She said that to me. I could not believe that she said that to me. I was so shocked by what she said to me, because I was like, you're not asking about your daughter. You're asking about the grades. That was wild to me. And this is why I was like, man, I need to get out there, because I realize parents have no idea. Because the thing is, most people who work in education or in positions of of power these days, you have to have safeguarding training, child protection training, you have to take this training about da-da-da. Everybody gets training. Do you know who the only people who don't get training? Parents. So parents are the ones who have no idea about any of it. But anyone who works in education or anything to do with kids gets loads. It's compulsory. You have to do it. And because I've had 28 jobs, so I know, because each one of those jobs I've had to do the same training over and over and over again. I want to go back to my story. So my dad gets stabbed. I start losing and getting out of control. All this stuff starts happening. And one day, I'm running out of co-op. I was friends with a guy called James, who was a white boy. And his dad is walking into co-op. And I'm running. At this time, I was homeless. I'd been living in a tent for 8 months. And James's dad is walking in, and basically I just break down. Because he's like, Cassim, where have you been? What's going on with you? And I literally don't know what happened. I just started crying. I'd never cried. If you speak to anyone who knows me, I ain't a crier. I am not a crier. I cry a lot now, but before I never used to cry, right? And James's dad was a single dad because his wife had been sectioned. She had gone through postnatal depression, and that led to a series of events happening, like crazy events, and she ended up being sectioned. So James's dad took custody of the children. And James's dad worked part-time in a school literally opposite where they lived as a maths teacher. James's dad then told me that I could live with him for 4 months. James's dad got me a cleaning job in the school. I just happened to be speaking to the head teacher and the deputy, and we were talking about my story. They were like, you should get a job here. I ended up getting a job there as a behavior support worker. Then I started speaking to loads of kids. What ended up happening was, when you work in a school and kids tell you something that is to do with safeguarding, by law, you have to refer it to the safeguarding lead. I was making so many safeguarding leads. Remember now, guys, I was in bottom set for school. I was kicked out of school. I didn't even do my GCSEs because my attitude was, why should I do the GCSEs if everybody's been calling me monkey, dumb, stupid? Part of the reason why this was when I first moved to England, I didn't know English, so they put me back 1 year so that I could learn English, and then they would move me forward. Guess what never happened? So on my birthday, which is why I hate my birthday, what would all the children say to me? Cassim, why are you 15 and we're 14? It's because you're dumb, isn't it? It's because you're a monkey. It's because you're a gorilla, isn't it? This is what they would say to me, right? And so to this day, I don't know my birthday. Most people don't know when my birthday is, ironically. And going back to, where was I in my story? Yes, so James's dad took me in. I started working. I was making so many referrals to the school. Remember, part of the reason was I did not know what counseling was back then. I just would talk to the kids, and then the kids would tell me stuff. I didn't know why they were telling me stuff. To be honest, I didn't even know what safeguarding was. I just knew I had a job, and I'd been homeless, and I was struggling for food, and I didn't have to do that anymore. But anyway, the kids would be telling me loads and loads of things. I'd make all these referrals to the safeguarding lead. And the woman had been a social worker before. And she said to me that she had left social working to become a safeguarding lead. What's my natural question? Why? What? She said, Cassim, I've come to now learn what, I understand now why she said this to me. Is there any social workers in this room? Okay, there isn't. The worst job, I swear, is being a social worker. Everyone hates you. The social workers today have about 50 kids that are on their rota. And I know this because I do a lot of training for social workers, right? 50 kids. 50 kids is how much they're dealing with at the moment. They don't really know them. They don't know them. Which is why when I sometimes I go to like these foster places and I do talks. You know what the kids always say to me? I hate my social worker. They say this all the time. And so the lady who was a social worker said to me, Cassim, you should become a safeguarding lead. Now we've progressed, and I was like, 24 grand, that's not a lot of money. That's nothing. And then she said, why don't you become a counselor then? I said, what's that? I don't know what a counselor was. I'd never heard of it. Now, let me come back to one of the lessons of why I wanted to come here today. I learned that day from James's dad that people who are not your blood can care as much about you and can help you as much as people who are your blood. I never knew that. No one ever told me that. No one ever told me that. Did you know there are people in this church who genuinely care more for other people who are not even their own blood than the people of their own blood? That's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. And so part of the reason why I wanted to come and speak to you is because I know that if you're here today, it's hot. you must be some of those people. You have to be. You don't have to be here. No one's forcing you. Actually, God is watching, but that's different, right? But no one's forcing you to be here, which means you must be those sorts of people. And so that's one of the lessons. And the reason why I'm saying this to you is I know that one of the problems that we have in the black community is we don't trust anyone outside of the black community for good reason. But not everybody is the same. We have to take people on individual merit. We have to. Because otherwise, some of our kids are not going to get any help. They just aren't. There are teachers out there, I'm telling you, because I can say this now, there are bad teachers out there, but because I've worked with so many people across so many different fields, there are incredible people out there. They are. They care more. Do you know how I ended up getting this job as working for Kuth was a white woman. She was like, Cassim, you need to go out there. You need to go speak to people because there aren't many black people, like men, who can, and they can relate to you. I was like, nah, I don't really like people. My life been a bit crazy. Let me live a low life, okay? I've been alcoholic, whatever. And so I ended up in sales, and then by the time I was 25, I was earning 110 grand a year. Here's the problem, and some of you are going to understand this because you're in the church. Just because things are going well on the outside, it doesn't mean things are going okay on the inside. What I discovered was I'd try to out-earn what had happened to me in my childhood. Let me get spiritual. God said, no, hold on a minute. We need to deal with this. You know when you try to outsmart God and you try to progress and do it your way, but then God consistently keeps putting the same pain in your life so that you can deal with the thing, so that you can then move forward? That's what kept happening. I ended up gambling again. I ended up drinking again. And basically, I got fired from my job. I turned up at my job because I was in sales that day, and I was selling houses at that point in time. I was a top salesperson in my company for 4 years in a row. Sold the most houses ever in the company. Outperformed everybody. And I turned up when I was drunk at 5 a.m. At that time, I had keys to my office. I opened the office. What do offices in sales have? People's bank records, people's mortgages, people's deposits. People, when you're buying a house, you come in and you show your deposit. When you're renting a house, you go in and all of the people's bank details were there. I opened the building, everything started going off. It's actually quite a crazy story because I actually don't remember it. I can only tell it to you based on the HR meeting that I had. They basically said to me, I walked through the door, I went downstairs, and there was a basement, and I slept downstairs. My manager then came into work the next day. It was a Saturday at 8 o'clock, found me. George then said to me, Cassim, what you did is you woke up, looked at me, you then went through the fire, because underneath the basement there's like a fire exit. You went through the fire exit, took everything with you, walked through the front door of the building, sat down at your desk, and pretended like you just come in. And he said, I sent you home. And then the next thing that happened was I came into an HR meeting, and they fired me. However, and this now goes back to the point that I wanted to tell you about people helping you. The guy who was one of the directors of the company at that time contacted me. He rang me, and he said to me, Cassim, I want you to come to head office. I want to have a meeting with you. And in the meeting, he said to me, I know that you've had a rough life, but you just need tweaking. You need mentoring. You just need help. You're trying to run too quickly. You're like trying to run away from stuff. I remember the meeting because he's such a nice guy, big guy, Tony, such a big guy, very like big stature. And he just said to me, look, we're going to start off. I don't know what you're going to do, but I'm just every week we're going to have meetings. And he just started talking to me about stuff. Started talking to me about money, started talking to me about like relationships, started talking to me about my life. And that's how my path of self-development and improving myself started. Now, let's bring it back to your original point about anxiety and stress. Here is the issue. When you start digging up graves, what starts to happen? Skeletons come out. You know that saying? What's that saying? It gets worse before it gets better? Yep. That was me. Here's one of the things that ended up happening. In order for me to begin to look at my life, and what was part of what was making me angry, part of why I blamed my mum was because when I was growing up, every time I would ask my mum about my biological dad, she'd cry. So this isn't my mum's fault, but I learned that asking about my dad causes my mum pain. It's a trigger for her. Here's a problem. The meaning that I made out of that is my mum is keeping me from finding out about my dad. So I began to get angry with my mum. Here's the thing. So I then progressed, and I'm at the point where I need to start deconstructing this stuff. Here's a problem. A huge chunk of my life was around my biological dad. Grief. I never grieved. And I didn't even know you could grieve somebody who you didn't know. Here's something that I found out in therapy. Have any of you ever heard of ambiguous loss? Ambiguous loss is when you lose something that means more to you than something that shouldn't mean as much. So, for example, the loss of a dog, the loss of your neighbor. Ambiguous loss was when the Queen died. People didn't know her, but people went into mourning. They were really hurting, right? Somebody who comes to church, you don't know them personally, but you saw them for the last 20 years. And you go through grief yourself. You don't even know what's going on with you. That's ambiguous loss. You cannot know your biological father, but here's what I learned, only because I've had so many men come into therapy. This will be interesting for the women, actually. I discovered that one of the things that if you find men who are homeless or in prison or who don't have access to their kids, and you trace it back to what happened, one of the events that usually triggers it is when their dad dies. There's something about a man's dad dying that seems to spiral men out of control. And I was like, why though? So I'd ask men in therapy. This is what they said to me. Because I'm now responsible. I'm the only one. There is nobody else. So what basically they feel is, I have a heavy duty. I am the heritage of my family now. That's a heavy burden to carry. So when I started digging these things up, I needed to speak to my mum. Here is the problem. You can be earlier when I said to you, you can be liberal, but your family might not be as progressive as you are. My mum had not gone through her healing or wasn't ready at the point where she wanted to start to delve into the past. So I'm there saying, what happened to my dad? Because I didn't know what happened to my dad. I was like, well, what was he like? How did you meet him? Why didn't he want to be like this? I know you would probably be like, oh, your mum would be so happy for you. You're finally looking at this stuff. You're finally healing, Cassim. Fantastic. Your mum, no. Because then this caused her to deal with stuff that she didn't want to deal with. Somebody in this room knows what I'm talking about. There's conversations you want to have, but you can't have them because they're going to cause even more trouble. You're going to unearth skeletons. And I'm saying to you that some of your kids, you say, oh, Cassim, they don't see what's going on. I disagree. Kids may not know what's going on. They may not have the language, but their body feels it, their energy. I always say to parents, if you want to know who senses I don't want to swear in this here, the B word, right? Who can sense crap? Teenagers. You just turn up to their room. You haven't even touched the door. You touch the door and you knock. I haven't done anything. What do you want? Right? They can sense it. They haven't even done anything. Because they don't have yet the language or the emotional capacity to explain things, but they can feel it. And what's happening is a lot of the kids that we're getting on our website are for things like this. These things. They're showing up. Loneliness. But how do you speak to your parents about loneliness? Guess what they're going to say to you? Get some friends. You know? Here's a very common one that I hear. Every time I tell my dad that I'm depressed, he tells me I need to go and read the Bible more. I've been reading the Bible. I'm still depressed. Now what do I do? I've heard about these antidepressants, but my mom says we don't do that stuff in the house. So now the child is torn. Where do they go? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Now they're stuck. They can't talk about it with you. They can't talk about it with their friends. But they're hearing about it, so they just shut down. And when that anger and frustration, so you say, I don't know why my daughter is so angry with me. And you really have no idea, but they don't even know why they're really angry, but they've never explored it. They don't have anywhere where they can talk freely without, here's a key word, judgment or shame. Or the other one is minimization. Or the ones that usually the girls say to me is, I don't want to tell my mom because every time I tell my mom, she's going to make a really big deal out of it. It's why people come to therapy. I always say to people come to pay me to just listen to it. It's crazy. I sit there. I remember the first session that I became a counselor. I sat there, and this woman, I said, so what's brought you to therapy? How can I support you? She then starts talking, and I keep saying, yeah, tell me more about that. An hour goes by, and she's like, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Oh, my God, you helped me so much. And I was like, I didn't even do anything. I didn't say anything. But what I discovered about therapy isn't, and this is one of the other things I wanted to come and tell you, talking isn't just talking. Talking is thinking and processing. In order to process something, you can either write poetry, write a song, you can go to read the Bible, you can do people's hair. All of us have different avenues that we process things. But if you don't process it, it stays in you. And this is, now I don't want to get into this, but this is when you start looking at the like tantra and the body and stuff like that, a lot of people's pains, chronic illnesses, are actually from stuff, unprocessed trauma. But they're like, oh, no. And they're like, oh, it's because of my job. No. There's stuff that your body, you remember, anything that's happening with your body is basically your body. You've ignored your spiritual side. You've ignored your psychology, right? You've ignored your emotions. And now the body says, fine, all right, Miss Clever, Mr. Clever, since you're so clever, now let us take this to a different league. So the body kicks in. And then the body now tells you through a heart attack, and you're probably going to see this a lot more. Have you seen the amount of people who are calling in sick recently? Why is everybody so sick recently? They're stressed out. But where you go to your boss, where do you go to tell people you're stressed out? You don't. You keep going. As my mum, I've discovered from my mum, because I said this in my book, my mum's life has been full of survival. My mum has never thrived. I discovered that because I'd done the work on myself, I started to thrive. A lot of us in the black community, our issue is we believe that success is survival. I would challenge you on that. I think success is thriving, going beyond where your parents were. What's the point in you suffering when your parents suffered for you? Why? It makes no sense. If you had a terrible, before I came here, on the way here, I was listening to a woman called Jane Fonda. You know her, Jane Fonda? And she was telling this story of her father and how her father, she'll never forget this, her father, one day she went to a place in America called Greenwich, and she was using the word Negro. And her father, the only time her father ever slapped her across the face. And her father said to her, don't ever use that word. And she said, why? And her father explained to her. Her father grew up with a granddad And there was one vivid thing that the granddad did, which made the dad, Jane Fonda's dad, really quite passionate about this. One day, they took a black man into the middle of the square in America, and they hang him, and then they put a rope onto his feet, and they would drive around a roundabout and drag his whole body around the roundabout. And Jane Fonda's grandfather forced the dad to watch what was happening. I don't know, she was just saying this in the interview. And what I'm saying is, he carried that life. He used it, of course, later on in his life for activism against racism. And I'm saying to you, some of you, you've come from difficult backgrounds. Your life hasn't been easy. Some of your relationships with your own family haven't been easy. How are you using it in a positive way? Fine, you didn't have money when you were growing up. Okay, so how are you using it now in a positive way? And the reason why I'm saying this to you is because one of the reasons why so many kids are struggling is because their parents are hypocrites. Oh, anything is possible, son. Let me study your life then. Oh, come on. You know, you should be a good person. Do you know what one girl, she said to me the other, where was I? I was in Croydon, at Kensington Avenue. And I had all these little year 6 kids sat in front of me. And I said to the kids, okay, kids, I want you to tell me, if you were being bullied, what would you do? And this little girl said to me, oh my God, let me tell you a story of my mum. And she said, I went to a new dance place, and my mum drove me there, and a woman cut her up. And when we parked up, my mum saw the woman. My mum got out of the car, went up to the woman's window, and she started punching on the window. And the kids, all these little kids were saying to me, oh, my mum's told me that if someone does something to me, I should punch them. I thought, I said to the kids, has anybody else ever heard this? And loads of them said, yes, me, loads of them. So what I'm saying is, the things that you're telling your child, are you practicing them? You know? Oh, you know, you can trust people. Does your behavior support that? Really? Does it? And this is the contradiction. So the kids, most people tend to think about mental health, kids struggling because they have a broken leg or something major. A lot of their pain is confusion. Well, school is saying to me that I should accept people, and they're having all of these things around acceptance, but then I go home, and in the house we're saying, we don't do that, we don't believe that, we don't bring that person, One kid said to me, a Chinese child, I was in Richmond, he said to me, my dad said to me that I have to be friends with this boy. And I said, why would your dad say that to you? He said, because my dad said that that family is rich and that boy is clever, and I should be around people who are like that. Richmond. So the kid has picked up that I can't be friends with people based on how they make me feel and who they are on a human level. I have to be friends with them based on their status and where they're going. And of course there's an element of that. You know, you're the average of the 5 people you're around, but is that really what we want to be teaching our kids? How are they going to value, when they get to become leaders, what are they going to be teaching the rest of their kids and their employees? It's just something to think about. So, part of the reason why I'm saying this is, at our website at Couth, kids can come and speak to us about absolutely anything. There is nothing too small. And the reason why I say this to you, particularly for boys, is because when we're working with boys, the biggest thing that boys say to me in assemblies is, well, I haven't got a broken leg. Well, I haven't got ADHD. Well, I haven't got... Basically, the boys believe I should not get help unless I'm dying. There's blood. I'm like, there's an ambulance here. And what we say is, a lot of their anger, resentment, frustration catches up and accumulates, and then down the road, something terrible, loads of pressure starts adding up, and then they access mental health through the justice system. I am here to ask you to support me to stop that. Get them to talk. If they don't want to talk to you, get them to come talk to us. I know some of you in this room, you're going to be saying, Cassim, I'm a fashionista. Cassim, I'm a football fan. I've got the latest tickets. My life is brilliant. Some of you are going to be saying, Cassim, I like anime. I'm a movie fan. Some of you are going to be saying, Cassim, I've got the Vivienne Westwood necklace. I bought the new Chloe perfume recently. To be honest with you, I don't even know why the church invited you. My kids are perfect. My life is amazing. I've got loads of support. If my kids was really worried, if my sister's kids was really worried, they'd come and speak to me. So I'm really very motivational, very inspiring, fantastic. Very nice. But you really wasted your time coming here. And what I would say to you is that this is what's going to happen to your kids. The trials that are going to come against you might not be coming from your household. They might be coming from outside of your household. Social media, Instagram. Let me tell you one of the ones that you want to look out for, because it's emerging, because we're seeing it. Reddit. Forget about Snapchat, forget about TikTok, Reddit and Discord. If you want to start looking for the ones to protect your kids against, are they on Reddit? Are they on Discord? That's the new Snapchat. That's the new TikTok. Watch it. Because basically they're unsupervised. They don't have the same, they're American. Anything that's American is unsupervised. They don't have, England, our laws here about kids and what they can access are very strict. Their laws there are different. And the kids are starting to create groups. And what scares me the most is particularly the girls. Because what the girls are starting to do, which is how it came to my attention, is they're starting to share their medication. Oh, Reddit and Discord. They're starting to share, because Discord, you can create, like, in WhatsApp, you can have a private group, like just the family. That's basically what you can do on Discord. So they're congregating, they're having cohorts of kids. Can you imagine if you got a bunch of girls who are all self-harming and they're exchanging ways to self-harm? That's what scares me, right? Yes. So this is why I say to you, you want to just watch, because it may not be your household that's going on. It may be they're being reached from outside of your household. Stuff is going on. And it may not just be you, because they may be being affected by some of the other kids in church. I'm not saying this is you. I'm just saying it could be. Right? What else? And I've said about the social media. These are the platforms. I want to come to this. Okay, so my brother used to play for Chelsea, and he's now plays for Swansea City. His name is Bashir Humphreys, and he plays for England as well. All the parents got invited to go up to St. James's Park, which is where all the England teams train, and we could ask the head coach questions. He started giving us all these figures. He's like, oh, we get thousands of kids come through the academy. Most of them don't make it. And I was like, well, if you have all these thousands of kids, well, how do some of them make it to become professional then? And he said to me, because of this word. What's the word, guys? Is this the one? Yeah. You've seen the Matrix? What is the whole theme of the Matrix about? What is the word? Which is about what? Choice. Choice. He said the choices that the kids make determine their future. And the reason why I'm saying this to you is because parents ask me this: how do I sell it to my kids? How do I get them to talk? Use this, their mindset. Okay? Their mindset, kids understand mindset. They all know it helps you become successful, right? And when you're talking to them, explain to them that their mindset is going to be affected by things that are going on around them based on how they feel, based on how they think, based on what's going on in their life. The head coach explained to me that a lot of the kids who make it to Chelsea Academy, they come from deprived backgrounds. But most of them fall off because of their mindset. Usually where they come from, they're talented, but when they all go to Chelsea where everybody's talented and they get challenged, they start fighting, they start getting angry. They haven't processed with the stuff where they've come from, which is why most training academies now have psychologists and counselors, because this is becomes such a big problem. And what I would say to you is, when they're coming to us, when you're speaking to them, say to them that talking isn't just talking, talking is thinking. If you are going to be intelligent, and we all know here in this room, right, as blacks, we do have to work slightly a bit harder. We do have to be a little bit more vigilant about how we come across. You have to. You have to be smart. Otherwise, you ain't going to make it. And so a huge amount of why I say to you is, when they come and have a chat with our counselors, we have about 250 of them. They can either choose a male or female counselor. And if they want a counselor who's Christian, they can ask for it. We have Christian counselors, right? Because I've been trying to say, we have so many parents who have kids whose kids are from faith, and they want somebody who's going to come from a place of faith. We have to get more counselors from the church. We have, right? What else was I going to say? There's a lot of things on there. It isn't just talking to our counselors, but our counselors are open every single day of the year, during the summer, during the winter, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Your kids during the summer holidays can have a chat with any of our counselors. It's all text-based. There is no telephone and there is no face-to-face. Everything is text-based. I know for us adults, that's like, really? The kids love it. Every time I say it to them, they're like, oh, really? And it's all anonymous. The kids, I'm only going to say this because the kids do not have to ask your permission to log on. And I would say to you, if you really want your kids to use our platform, do not monitor it. We do. We've built 2 AIs in our system. The first one looks for any inconsistent behavior. So we have a journal, as you can see. Where is it? The third one along. The journal equates to about 60% of the usage of our website. Basically, the kids can put whatever they want in the journal. And we've built an AI into that journal to look for any safeguarding issues. So if they put things like bullying, knife, meeting, anything like that to do with gangs or anything like that, keywords, or certain keywords it looks for, it will trigger and tell the clinical team. And then the clinical team will reach out and say, can we help? We've now, because we've got so many kids who come from gangs, there's a place on our website where they can report crimes. They no longer even have to leave our website. They just fill out a form and we will make the claim on their behalf. The second AI looks for inconsistencies. Our website breaks down, because you can see there are articles on our website. Our website breaks down what the kids can see based on their ages, because we don't want, we work from 10 until 25, and we don't want 10-year-olds reading articles of 18-year-olds. 18-year-olds, these kids are talking about sexual things. We don't want 10-year-olds saying that sort of stuff. So part of the reason for the AI is in case one of the kids lies and says they are 19 when in reality they're 12. It's inevitable some kid is going to try to do that. So the AI looks for consistencies. It lets the clinical team know, and they'll shut down the account. Everything that happens on our website is moderated by humans, not AI, humans. Whilst the AI picks up stuff, the ultimate decision is made by human beings. The other thing that I want to finish off with is on our website, one of the most important things that I've come to realize about speaking to young people is that all of them have a story. Just like you guys. I wish I had an opportunity to sit down with you and ask you your story. Woo! Some of you, oh my goodness me, I need to give me a year. Huh? A lot's happened. Some of your kids, because they tell me when I do assemblies, a lot's happened. A lot. And what's really funny is a lot of parents, it's funny as a counselor, because I work in a school as a counselor as well, and it's always so funny because I get 3 views. I get the view of the child who sat in my office, the view of the parents, and the view of the school. And it's like, it's weird. Because usually the parents are, I want to know what you're talking to my child about. My son's been coming in, telling me about all this dissonance and all the, what are you saying to my son? Right? Because parents, it threatens them. Or I might speak about something, because sometimes in order for your child to process what's going on for them, I have to make the parent the enemy. Because the child has to start to understand what is, I'll give you an example. An easy one is consent. Every school teaches kids about consent. Here's a problem. A lot of kids are very confused, particularly girls, because what happens is consent doesn't exist in their household. There is no consent. Let me tell you something. You do what I just told you. But then they're like, huh? But then the school said to me that if I don't feel comfortable about something, I don't have to do it. So they're like, wait, so what's consent then? So this is why I said to you, particularly with the black kids, ultimate knowledge about what is right and wrong comes to the parents. They don't believe the school. I used to say it all the time. My mum said that I don't have to take the vaccine. My dad said that Muslims don't take the vaccine. I'm not taking it. So the kids would refuse, even though all the other kids are getting it. What was another one? I don't have to celebrate Pride. You know, sometimes they would have like a Pride Day. My dad said that we don't believe in that. I'm not doing it. So now the child has contradiction. And usually, of course, they're going to go with a parent. And so a huge amount of us in the black community, and this is why I wanted to come here, is about that if your child is coming to you and they start asking questions, it's not that you're a bad parent, or if they come to you and tell you stuff, that's a good thing. It isn't that there's anything wrong, it's that they feel comfortable now that you're not going to judge or shame them, that they want to tell you. Right? I think I really want to reiterate this because it's really important. A lot of parents, when their kids come to them, they're not, I'll tell you how the kids say to me. I don't tell my mum or my dad because when I tell them, they try to fix it. I don't want them to fix it. I just want them to know. Trust me, they're your kids. They ain't dumb. They're your kids. And you ain't dumb. You've been around. You've seen a few things. I was with a woman in Croydon, and she said to me that she had agoraphobia. I don't know if you're familiar with agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is where you don't leave, you can't go to certain places. So she couldn't go to Morrison's in Croydon. And I said to her, why not? She would have panic attacks. Agoraphobia is linked to panic attacks, which is linked to anxiety. So usually you get anxiety, then you get panic attacks, and then you're like, I can't leave, you freeze. And I said, what was happening? So basically her daughter had started to have panic attacks. Her daughter. And I was like, why didn't you leave the house? Why didn't you want to go and leave the house? She said, because I was in an abusive relationship. The man I was in an abusive relationship went to prison because of what had happened, and I was through a long court trial and loads of things happened. And I was scared because he attacked me in Morrison's. He attacked me in Morrison's. He beat me up in Morrison's. And so the daughter started also refusing to go out. She was like, I don't want to go to the shop. What if it happens to me? They pick up stuff. She was like, I didn't even know my daughter even knew this stuff had happened. They just do. They pick it up. So when they come to you and speak to you about stuff, it isn't a bad sign. It's that they trust you. It's a good thing. So that's where I'm going to finish it off with this. Hold on. Not this one. You don't need to know all this. This is for the kids. This. You've seen it. You've seen Thanos. You've seen the Avengers movies. Thanos has a stone. Basically, ultimately, choice. I can't force you to speak to your kids. I can't force you to change your mind about what you believe. But I hope that through the demonstration of some of the things that I've shared with you about my story, that you can begin to understand that anxiety, stress, all of those are normal. Black, white, we're all going to get them. But we need to process them. We need to put them somewhere. And some of the reasons why some of your kids might be struggling isn't because they're bad. They're not bad. They just have stuff which they've picked up along the way, either from another household, what they've seen on social media, and they just haven't processed it. And I'll finish off with this. The one that's currently circulating, which has been a big problem, is a lot of the 12-year-olds are being added into WhatsApp groups where they're sharing explicit images. I know for some of you are like, oh yeah, but it's just extreme. If you're 12 and you don't even know what any of that stuff is, and you see a bunch of extreme things going on, it's traumatic. And the problem is, you're like, my son's starting to act weird, but I don't know why. He's never been like this before. He was fine. He's eating, he comes home, he goes to school, he's always, I don't know. He might have been exposed to things that he shouldn't have been exposed to, but he can't tell you. And so at least now you have a choice where you have a platform where you can say, log on, Chris.com, have a little look, and if he puts it in the journal and we see it, we'll reach out to him and say, do you want to chat about it? It's up to him. If he doesn't want it, he doesn't want it. But if he does, at least there's someone there to help. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Any questions? Yes. Let me bring it to you.
Thanks. I wanted to ask, you said to get the children to buy in, you need to speak to their parents. So I wanted to ask you, in your many conversations with the parents, what's one thing that you say to them that you can see it's clicking for them to get the children to come and see you?
If you tell the parents that if their kids speak about their emotions, it will help their kids do better in their GCSEs. Success. When I do assemblies in school, I don't show you guys what I've showed you. Their assemblies are all about, technically I lie. Their assemblies are a lot more about, you saw those pictures that I showed you of the bags and the stuff like that. I speak to the kids about things that they care about. Success. When you're young, all you want to do is have loads of money. Let me not generalize. Many kids want to have success. So that's what I speak to them about. If you're struggling to speak to your kids or they ain't talking, it's because you're not coming to them and relating to them on a level that they understand. For example, here's an easy one. Do you want a PlayStation 5? If you do, for the next 6 months, we're going to have a chat at the dinner table for an hour. Well, that's 6 months. Well, 3 months then. I can't guarantee it, but if you behave, you can have a PlayStation 5. Now, that's language every teenager can understand. Right? Does that kind of answer your question, by the way? You got to meet the kids where they're at. And here's another thing that I would say to you, because I hear it a lot. My mom doesn't listen to me. My dad doesn't listen to me. When you're speaking to kids, repeat back. That's what we do in counseling. When you're a counselor, when people come in, what you do is they tell you something, and then you say, am I understanding you correct that what you said is that what's happening for you is ... and then you repeat it back to them. And then they'll usually say something, that's not what I said. Well, I wouldn't use that word. So repeat back to the kids what they've said. Oh, they're going to love to correct you. They're going to be like, that's not what I said. It will get them talking.
What formal qualification or training do you need to become a counsellor like yourself?
If you want to become a counsellor, all you need to do is get a level 4 diploma in counselling. So you have to do a level 2, which is skills, for a year. And then from there, you do a 2-year diploma to become a counsellor. Now, I only did it because back in those days, basically the crux of it is I always wanted to do research. And I wanted to do research on the best approaches for black people in therapy. But I was like, how the hell do you do research? So I spoke to somebody and they said, you either write books about it or you get to a university and do it. But I was like, I'm not an academic person and I don't have any GCSEs. So I went to night school, did my GCSEs, And then I eventually went on to do the skills, level 2. And basically what I discovered, which is what I'm doing next year, is once you've got level 5, which is what I've got, you can then spend level 6, which is the last year of a university, doing research on anything you want. Which is what I always wanted to do. I want to search in therapy what are the best ways that work for black people. Because there is no research at all in therapy about black people. There is none. It doesn't exist. Well, that's not how I see it, but I just want to find out how we can support more black people. That's all. Particularly men, because there's a lot of violence and anger amongst our men. It's got to stop somewhere. It's just crazy. Anyone else? Oh, yes.
Just to add on what you were saying about schools and the parenting with like children, like our color, I think just to add to your point, one of the things is that black parents, we don't embrace it, and we as blacks, we don't speak much about it.
About what, sorry? Can you clarify?
Like ADHD with the SCN with our black children, because I think it also could be a culture thing, like how we actually grow up, we didn't really know about ADHD and autism. So just to add to your point,
I agree. I agree, by the way. Thank you very much for that. But also, just to say on that, there are loads of parents who support their kids. If your child has ADHD, like, I don't want to keep this negative because I know loads of parents, if their son, the school calls and they're like, do you want to like have an assessment? They're like, of course. Like, I want to get my son seen. Like, how can we support him? Not everyone, but the point is, let's not cast a negative brush on everybody, because the reality is I've met many parents who, and here's what's actually ironic. I hold loads of, so after school, I hold loads of sessions for parents. Part of the reason why I come to church is because no parents ever turn up. None. No parents. I go to loads of schools, and I say to the school, tell the parents, I'm going to stay after school, they can come and speak to me. They don't turn up. Which is why I was like, I'll come to you then, which is why I'm here. But what was I going to say? But many, when I do and some turn up, it's actually usually blacks. There's loads of, seriously. I was at something college, Beckmead College, and they had this day where I said, I'm going to stay here the whole day. Any parent can come and speak to me. They sent it out to all the parents, and there was many black parents.
Hi, thank you for coming anyway, because I mean, that was quite informative. Yeah, so I work in a school, and I've been in meetings with parents about their child who's kind of going down the wrong path. And when we suggest anything, we could just say, we could have just said to the parent, like, we can offer a mentor to your child. And as soon as we say anything, the parent blows up. And why do you want to offer? Why do you want to give? I don't want my child with any mental thing. We're like, no. This is to help your child. But the black parents and the Asians also, and the Somalian ones, think that if we try to help their child or bring anybody from outside, it's going to bring social services into their houses. That's why a lot of them don't want anything to do with it.
So let me talk about social services, because I do their training, and they have this conversation. The chances of social services removing your child is like almost impossible. Like, I cannot tell you, it's so hard. It's so difficult. They have like 7 stages they have to go through before they can ever remove your child. And I mean, if you saw oh, Lord help me, don't trigger me because I don't want to say something today. If you saw the parents that social services were giving the kids back to, in my opinion, I don't think they should be giving the kids back to those parents. I don't think so. But the way the British system works is the parent has to keep that child at all costs. Unless that child is basically in imminent danger, they have to be with the parent. The research says it's worse off for the kid to remove them from the parent than to keep them with the parent. Therefore, the British system, the chances of you getting that kid removed is like, it's so difficult. Unless the parent is doing some crazy things like burning them, right? I used to have, because of the school I used to work in, I remember I went to this woman's house, and basically her daughter was sleeping in the school all the time, and I didn't understand why her daughter was sleeping. So I just went around to the house. I was like, I don't understand. What's going on with you? She wouldn't answer my phone calls. The child was sleeping in a chair. And I said, the school has a bursary. She didn't have the bed. I said, why did you? I've been calling you. I've sent you emails. Like, we can help you. Like, we can get your bed. Like, we literally have funds to support parents. She said, I was ashamed. And we got her the bed. And now her daughter, it's just simple things. Like, there was another mother, and her daughter was being like bullied all the time because she would come up with like worn shoes. And I was like, this school, we can get her the shoes. But she was so resistant. She was like, no. And I was like, back to her. And this is the thing that I always have to say to black families. You have no idea what's out there that can help you. Oh my God, there is so much stuff. The problem is you have to search for it and ask for it, but there's so much support. You've seen all of these articles recently where they've been saying about all this unclaimed money, unclaimed benefits. Do you know most parents don't even realize they can get child benefit support? If you're over a certain amount of hours, they'll help you and give you money, the government, not because you're like scrambling. Anyone can claim money to help them with their childcare, and people don't even use it. And the money just gets clawed back, so you're paying taxes, and all your money you're paying to hopefully help you, and you don't even claim it. So much money. So there's loads of things out there, but you've got to search for it. And I always say to everybody, if you've got a family hub, just go to the family hub. Those women are amazing. Every family hub that I've been to, the women are amazing, because it's usually women. I've never seen one with a man there. And because they know of the stigma that people have, they're just extra, more nicer than usual, I would say. But there is so much support. Please don't think that just because this school is saying, do you want your child to have a more defined timetable? Do you want them to speed? It's not a bad thing. It's just your child is struggling. The worst thing, can you imagine working in a school and you see this boy who's getting into trouble all the time, and you're like, do you know what? Why don't we just, instead of him having 5 periods, let's give him 4. And the last hour, we're going to let him walk around and play basketball. Because that's what some schools do. They bring in somebody, like a like a PT, and they just play with a kid, basketball. That's it, for an hour. That one thing, that's all the kid needs. But if he doesn't have that, like outside room to just go outside and breathe, see the air, he will just cause havoc in the school. He will just cause havoc. So, but if you know that, and this is why I say we need men, particularly. We need men in education, because the problem is, if a man says it, it's different. I've noticed when my female colleagues say to the mothers, it's as if they're, like, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say about my parenting? But when the men, because usually I had a lot more success with the mothers than my colleagues did. So I've realized when some of our brothers here, the men, start, which is why I'm like, uncles, grandparents, you need to start going to these appointments. Because when you do, people have a lot more respect for you. They just do. If you turn up to parents' evening and their grandparents are there, it sends a different message. It really does. It's not the same thing. If you turn up with your sister to a parents' evening, you know you're going to be the only person there with your sister. It's different. Everyone knows it. You can sense it. And then the school then like, oh, they're serious. Oh, what's going on? Oh, we need to, okay. I know it's weird and it sounds silly, but the school, the biggest scare or the biggest thing that all teachers are scared of is being brought into a disciplinary. It's the biggest fear of all teachers. This is why all teachers at the moment, they're not really educating kids, because they're really, really, really scared they're going to get fired. Because they're scared they're going to say something or do something. And you know, kids, they can interpret things that you say in a way that you didn't really say it. I was at a school. Where was I? I was at a school in Croydon, and the woman said to me, I said, why did you call me in? She said to me, one of the girls was self-harming, and part of the reason why she was self-harming was because she joined a group of other girls who were already doing it. And what she did is she moved the timetable of the kid so that the kids they were in different tutors and stuff like that. They could basically interact with each other. The girl made a TikTok account, and she made a TikTok account saying that the school was racist, that they were telling all of this sort of stuff. It went viral. Parents were turning up, what's happening with my child, all of this sort of stuff, right? And part of the reason why I was brought in was because to speak to the kids about you got to be careful with social media. It can have consequences. Like, parents were very worried. There was a whole meeting, and it was crazy. So, yeah. Kids can interpret things in sometimes ways they're not. But because they know, your kids are actually at an advantage now. When it comes to the school, your kids are at an advantage because they know so much of their rights. I cannot tell you how much your kids know. I was at a primary school, and I was doing a year 6 assembly, and I was saying to the kids, and our service is anonymous. A little girl stood up and she says, so what's the difference between you then and NSPCC? I thought, okay, you need to relax, little girl. This is primary school. Primary, not even high school. So they know. The school, this is what the parents wanted. This is what you've been wanting. Educate my kids. I want my kids to know about sexual violence, all this stuff. They've done it. But now the kids have a leverage. Because in schools, miss, you tell me, how many times do kids bring up things like, well, I'll tell my mom the teacher shouldn't do this. That's going to be this miserable. You could get arrested if you say that to me. It's like every school is a very common thing because the kids know what their rights are.
Testing, yeah. Do you think then, because this has been a suspicion of mine from a while back, that, it's not just something that is happening, that the children are having so much leverage in the sense that they know so much of their rights. Mm-hmm. And they know how to manipulate the circumstance to benefit themselves.
Yes.
That even teachers has to be on tenterhooks, like you just mentioned a while ago.
Yes.
You understand me? And it's not just at the school, but it's also in the home.
Yes. The kids are playing the parents.
But the thing is, I don't think it's something that just came about without a design. I personally think it's designed.
I couldn't comment on that, and I wouldn't know. I can only tell you what I see, but I wouldn't know about that. I just know that the kids, what they say to me and what I hear. And I hear a lot of, if you do this or if you say that, I'm going to tell you could get fired. I hear a lot of that. And Miss is there. She's in the school all the time, so she can tell you.
The reason why I said that is, in a way, is because, I was reading this article once about a child could go home at the age of about, say, 5, and say to her mother, Mom, I don't want to be a girl no more. I want to be a boy.
Yeah.
And if the mom was to say to her, don't be stupid. You're a little girl. What's wrong with that? And the child go, she started crying. And she goes to school looking upset. And the teacher was to say, what's the matter you, Pamela? Pamela says, I told my mom I want to be a boy, and she told me that I'm being stupid.
You're saying like this is theory. This is not theory. This has happened. You know that, right? This isn't theory. These things have actually happened.
This is an article I read once.
Oh, okay.
And it was saying that the parent or even the teacher could take up that child's case and go against the parent, and the parent would be in trouble.
You're going on. I personally can't get involved in such a conversation, but what I would say to you is ultimately the parent has the decision.
Ultimately?
The parent has the decision.
The parent has the decision.
The parent has a decision unless that child's life is at risk, in which case the school has no choice but to make certain, anything to do with radicalization, anything which puts the young person at risk. But ultimately, it's your kid. You can raise your kid as you wish, still.
Well, I'll be honest with you.
Even if you don't agree, look, you want to try to go up against parents? Because I'm telling you, it's a very difficult thing. If you speak to Miss and you ask her, or anyone who works in education here, who is the biggest obstacle to supporting kids, Miss, please tell us. The parents. But the problem is, the parents who have very strong views on stuff, those are the ones who take you to the papers. They'll take you to the papers. It's the same parents. This is why I said to you, the school has to tiptoe around, because they know certain kids, what their parents are like. And they know it will get into the paper. They just know.
The children do have a bit too much rights, though, because like we had one student who leaves the house in the morning as a boy, and he comes to school and switches over into a girl, and he's got a different name as a female, and then he goes home, and we're not even allowed to share that with the parents.
Well, that's tantamount to what I'm talking about. See, I'm saying that's sort of like near the point I'm talking about, because as I say, it wasn't my thoughts or intuition as such, it was what I read. You understand me? And I don't think it was just one time I read to get that understanding. I believe that it's something that I believe that, that they're giving kids so much power.
Yes.
Now, and at a very young age where they can make dictations. Like you just said, the child can manipulate. Who turned me off?
Yes.
Can manipulate circumstance, school.
But then on the other hand, if a child is also at risk, they can also use a system to protect themselves. So there is pluses and minuses. Because in some circumstances, there is some hush-hush, don't take things out of this family, but there's abuse going on. Actually, if you really want to know what brought me into this job, the thing that brought me into this job is I was dealing with a girl who came into my office and she said, Mr. K, I need to tell you something. That's what the kids used to call me, Mr. K. And she was a Pakistani girl, and she disclosed to me that she had told her mum that her dad there was some sexual abuse in the house, and the mum said, you're lying. She then said that she went and told her auntie, because her auntie lived down the road from her, and her auntie then called the police, got the dad arrested, but the mum said nothing, all of it was a complete lie. And I said to the girl, why did you come and tell me this? And she said, because my sister is nearly turning 13, and I'm scared it's going to happen to my sister. And the boys, 3 boys, were all in the same school as me, and they all knew. All the boys knew. And I was like, because she said to me, because I said, who else knows? I said, oh, my brothers know. Right? Anyway, so I said to her, I'm really sorry, but because of what you say to me, I have to tell the safeguarding team because of what you said to me. This was a lot of this stuff used to happen all the time. I think I said to you, kids would tell me all this sort of stuff for whatever back then I didn't know why, but I came to realize it's because I'm a non-judgmental person and my story is so crazy that to them they're like, oh, if it's that crazy, then he can probably handle it. And she stormed out of my office and never spoke to me again. And that day, I began to realize, some kids, they want to tell their story, but they don't want people to do anything about it. And there are systems and traditions and ideologies in households, such as mine, where my mum said to me, don't bring that juju in this house, which can keep people chained and imprisoned. So in the same way that, like anything, social media, you can promote your business. But at the same time, you can use social media, what is it called now? Cancel culture. Thank you so much. You can also have cancel culture. Pluses and minuses. But ultimately, the way the education people see it is it's the ones that are most at risk. I always say to people all the time, if you look at who actually uses services, it's the same families. If you go to your GP and you ask them to see all the records over the last 10 years of who's gone into the GPs, I bet you'll be the same families. Same people every week. Every now and then a random person is ill and then they go in. Think about yourself. Unless you have a chronic illness, you probably haven't been to the GP in 5 years. The only time you went there is because your daughter or your son had something wrong going on with them. The system, on our system, because one of the questions that parents ask me is, because your service is anonymous, if a young person were to disclose something going on with them, what would you do? And part of the reason our system, we ask kids when they register on our system to tell us where they roughly live in a country, is because so we can then tell the police. And my question was, how the hell is the police going to find them? Let's say they're in Croydon. Do you know what the clinical team said to me? Because the police usually know who the childs are. It's the same kids who run away.
I wanted to ask, if my child wants to access the service, how is it that they go about accessing it?
All they have to do is go on to couth.com. That's it. The kids will know. It's very self-explanatory. They've put 3 things in: their age, where they live in the country, and a login. We've simplified it so that any kid can access our service. It's open every single day of the year. It's free. There's translation on there for kids who speak other languages as well. As I said, there's 250 counselors. The waiting time to speak to one of the counselors is between 15 minutes to an hour. That's why we have so many counselors, because as I said to you, what we've learned is the kids want to come and speak and then disappear. Yeah? The kids aren't looking to have loads of counseling sessions. They want to come, say, so for example, I'll give you an example. The kids come onto our website and they see things like, I hate my dad because he told me I can't have GTA because I'm not old enough. I hate my sister because she gets more presents than me on my birthday. I hate my, what was one? Because I was listening to one of the calls. A girl was talking about how she has to go and see her dad in Birmingham because her mum says she has to, but she doesn't want to, and she wanted to speak about it. Does that answer your question? These are the sorts of things we get on our website. Sorry.
Yes, I really need to trying to understand. So I'm asking a question. At the meantime, probably make a little statement in between. Because what you're saying is that everything boils down back to the parent. For me, I don't believe all that. Well, I know, then from history, you have things that happen. Mm-hmm. The system also have a lot to play with it. Mm-hmm. But
there's a lot of teachers who should not be teachers.
Well, there you go. And those who are in control shouldn't be in control either. Mm-hmm. Because the thing is that parent cannot do much. When the system is already set in a way wherein, okay, my child is, okay, let me use for example, a single parent. A single parent growing up children, or child, or whatever it may be, they have to think about, okay, young single parent, how am I going to grow this child? The system, how the system is, actually, is that, okay, as the child has said, and you have mentioned, well, if you do this, you're going to be, have to deal with the authorities. And because they know so much, the system has already set up kids to know that, okay, you're going to blame parents and you're going to blame teachers. Teachers cannot do much. They will pull back because children are going to turn up and say that, okay, what can you do? I'm going to do this. So where is it really coming from? We cannot just say that it's all coming from parents.
Well, that's the question that the gentleman was asking, isn't it? What's the agenda? What's going on here?
There you go. Because there are parents who try to grow their children in the right way. Even within the church, there are parents who try to grow their children, and yet still, they, because of peers and because of society, they're frustrated. Parents are frustrated. Young people are frustrated because what? There's no job. Young parents have to go and do odds job. Society has kept them a certain way wherein there's no better in life. You're mentioning that, okay, the parent asked, what did this child, how is the grade? Yes. Right, because they're looking at it, because parents telling their children, listen, you have to learn, you have to get this, do not depend on a man, do not do this. Well, I would say like I'm an old school, but not really an old school. But I'm from Jamaica, and I have to come here, and I have to work and study, to educate myself, and have to pay while doing 16 hours, yeah? And use that money to go to college, university. I have to start all over. I do have a son, and I have to grow that son up. Meantime, I'm doing what I am supposed to be doing. No, society, when I come here, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen all over, because there are issues. But I come to understand it's okay to your child should just achieve that, or it's okay to get this low grade, while we grow up where you should ensure you educate yourself and educate your children.
But let me just say, remember, there is no perfect parenting.
There you go, but we cannot always blame parents.
No, most people blame parents. Most people blame parents, which is why most parents don't want to go. Many of you know, I don't know if you know, one of the big problems other schools have is parents turning up to parents' evening. Do you know that? A lot of the schools, parents are not turning up to parents' evening because they know they're going to be told. It's your fault. The reason why your child is not doing well. Most of the time, it's always the parents that are blamed. And ironically, it's the parents who are usually trying to do their best. And so I always have to remind people, all you can do is your best. There is no, sometimes the system is rigged against you. This is why I'm saying, like, for me, a big thing is we have to come together, guys. This is why I've been saying to you, the aunties and the uncles and the grandparents, because it's easier if you can, and I'm not saying you can because everyone's situation is different, but if your son is struggling and you bring your family to that school, I'm telling you, the school notices. If you turn up to parents' evening and I was at a school recently. Oh yeah, that school that was at where there was a TikTok problem, and they were going to Selhurst Stadium to do racing day, and a dad walked into reception. I was signing in. A dad walked into reception, and basically you could pick your son up at 5 o'clock after the sports day is finished, or the bus was going to bring them, and you can pick them up from school at 7. And the dad said, "I'm not coming." The dad said, "I'm not coming." And you could just hear the reception. After he left, I could hear them. They were like, he can't even come to his son's sports day. And this stuff like this, the school notice. And when you're on their back, and I'm just using the school here as an example, they give your child more attention. You get more when there are more of you. It shouldn't be like that. That's just how it is. If you got more money, you get more support. It shouldn't be like that, but that's how it is. Yes, please.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, sir, and welcome to Brixton Seventh-day Adventist Church. Just like to say that I work in the system. I studied at Roehampton.
Oh, Roehampton University, yeah, I've been there. Yes.
Achieved a Bachelor's Award in Education, Childcare and Education.
Oh, wow.
And Foundation. And a lot of you, what you mentioned, a lot of your case studies, came to light. I've also, brought up in the foster care system with fostering children. And I've come across a lot of the case studies and know about the mental health. I'm a centre also, learning advisor. Actually, I'm off long-term sick right now, but that was my work. So what I wanted to say that what helps, what doesn't help, when we're being educated at the Frobel College, when we're in education, and Southlands at Roehampton, you had tutors. There's only 3 blacks in the class, and you're told that part of the system is focused on, with social welfare, the black community. They're a problem. Ethnic minorities are an issue. And that's indoctrinated into you, and you've got to write essays about it. You've got to study, you've got to do research about it. Yeah? So they've indoctrinated you already in the teaching colleges who is the problem in a society. And that's how they are training the teachers. And when you're doing about the curriculum and everything, all those studies, they're training you in this way. So you're actually up against each other. You see another black child or another black, family, and you're thinking, and as soon as you see a problem, they got problems. But me as a single mother as well, we have problems. We have our own problems as well to deal with, and we're taking on a load of other problems. But there's a God, because the standard is God. If you got God in you, you put that God above all their systems, and you stick to it. When I was attending the college, I used to go. I didn't know it was a cathedral, but I used to go there every day because I just wanted that support. And the priest used to say to me, "You're the only one who used this place," because I used to go there for prayers because I knew that I was in the system. So you need to have that. And when what you're being taught, you have to know your Bible as well and your scriptures and be spiritual. Also work for other organisations. When I left there, because it's all about, when I got in the system, it's about education. Tony Blair was in, and I came in at the right time because there's work everywhere. And I got into some really awesome projects. I was working with children prior to that and came into the teaching system and the children's system. And what I realised, they were starving for mentors and outreach workers.
Yes.
And the young black men need to do mentoring. They need to come into the schools because I've mentored a child. I've gone into school and they said, you're going to work with that child. I ended up working with the whole classroom. A young teacher, she said to me, I don't know how to do with special needs children.
Yes, I'm really sorry.
I don't know what to do. And the child was wetting himself, stripping off and so I got him. By the time I finished with him the year, he was the best dressed child, dry, and he got 99% attendance for the first time out of the 5 years he's been there. Yeah, so it's about taking God. And he was a praying child, and I used to allow him to pray. They told me that he was mimicking. So first thing, when I went to school that morning, he would say, let's pray. I said, yeah. And we'd get together, we'd pray, and the day would run smooth. But then you see some teachers would see that and say he's just mimicking, and they were trying to label him, and they'll give him a purple form and say they want him in a special, this is a mainstream school, they want him out. They want him in a special needs school. So they're trying to fail him. I taught him to do his times table and things they don't want him to advance in, and they told me to stop.
It's true.
So you have systems set up against the children.
And this is why, do you know what's going to disrupt it? You know, I like to make these notes on my, I have basically, because I go to so many schools, every time I see something really good, I pick it up. And I try to tell other schools about it. Like, for example, I've noticed in one of the schools that's doing really good recently is all the kids have, in a lot of schools, the kids have lanyards. And on the lanyards, all the kids have their predicted grades. And the kids see it every day. So it reminds them, one, it reduces their anxiety, and two, they have a goal. They see where they're going. And for them, they said to me, that really works. So I've been writing things down, particularly about black people. And one of the things I wrote down is this, and I don't know if this helps any of you, to what you said. We need more male teachers, not TAs, and we need more male head teachers. And I want to expand that, touching on to what you said. If you can, you may not be able, as a black man, to go into a school and teach because you have a corporate job, you're an accountant, something, but you can do little things like go to the parents' evening, go to the sports day. I know this may sound so inconsequential, but can you imagine going to a school and there are 5 black men on sports day? The Asians have the highest attendance on these events. Asian dads are always there. They're always there. Go to any school event, the Asian dads are always there. Can you imagine if you went to your child's school and there were you brought your brother with you? I know it's a long, and you're having to get him out of work and he's going to have to leave on his break, whatever. But can you imagine if you brought your granddad? If you brought somebody, a member of the church, what it says to the other black men, not black men, black boys in that school. It says something. Oh my God, they care. Because one of the things that I hear, which is why I'm, basically my I'll keep this 100 because I like to be honest with people. My organization don't really want me to come out to speak to you in person. It costs money. I have to drive here. They want me to do it online. But my thing is, every time I speak to black people, they keep saying to me, oh my God, Cassim, you actually came. Like, people sound surprised that I'm coming to see you. Like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to come and see you. It makes a difference when you see a black man, like especially because I see in this room, there are lots of professional black men. Can you imagine if you went to your son's school and you saw these professional black men turning out, all suited and booted? It says something. It says something. And I only saying this to you because when I used to work in a school, I always dressed smart, all the time. And kids used to say to me, Mr. K, you always dress so smart. And I never really understood why they kept saying that. Until I realized, oh, a lot of the black men they encounter don't really dress like this. So it's like, oh, you can have that level of standard for yourself? You know, back in the days, our granddads and people like that, everywhere they went, they used to dress smart. They didn't dress smart because they had to, but they had a certain pride. You know, when you got a new suit on, right? You go into Top Man or whatever, and it makes you feel some type of way. And it says something. Here's the second one. We need more black men in teachers' unions. Because the teachers' unions set the rules about what is acceptable and isn't acceptable in terms of conduct and what we're teaching the kids. Unions. There is a reason why you saw the unions and the government at clash, because the unions have power. We need more black psychologists and therapists. I'm a minority. The amount of kids who say to me in school, you don't seem like a counselor. I never understood why they would say that. I was like, huh? What do you mean by that? Because they'd never seen one before. They'd never seen a black counselor before, so they don't really know. Yeah, they don't know what it is. They don't know what to expect. And here's what's really interesting, what the kids say to me. They would say to me, because I'd say to them, why have you decided to come and see me, though? Why did you choose to come and see me? Here's what they say. Because you've got a different perspective. They see it as a black person, I'm not one of them, therefore, I'm going to show them a different perspective than the one that they have. I'm just saying. Here's the other one that I wrote down here. If my phone will open. Seems like it's not going to open. More black men in vocational trades. More black men in divorce and family systems. There are no black men in the family system. So all these black men, students used to say to me all the time, they used to say to me, my dad has abandoned me. They used to say to me this all the time. Kids used to say this to me all the time. And I say to them, stop right there. Did your dad abandon you, or did your dad abandon the relationship with your mum? Because the way kids see it is, if dad abandoned mum, then he abandoned me, because kids haven't yet differentiated their selves from their parents. Mum is me. Dad is me. Right? They haven't yet grown up to be able to differentiate. Oh, I don't want to get into that now. Don't bring me into territory, please. But what I'm saying is, it makes a difference. And the reason why I'm saying this to you is because I go to a lot of family hubs, and they say to me that a lot of the dads, particularly because I sometimes go to the dads clubs, and do you know how many dads have custody of their children? And do you know how they got custody? Because they fought. They were actually better fit dads. And they would say things like, oh, my brother was there to help me do the forms. I remember this guy, I saw him like 2 weeks ago. He said, you can tell I'm not a clever guy, I'm a brickie, but my wife should not have kept the kids. And my brother had to help me fill out the forms because I couldn't fill out the forms. This isn't me saying to you that mums are not the best and we should be removing kids from their mums, but some of you know some kids would be better off if they were their dad in this room. You know it. It's the honest truth. It's not that the mother is not a good person, but that child, his grades, his discipline, and him as overall in terms of his character would be better if he was around more men. And the question is, where are they? Because this is what the women say to me. Where are these men then? Yes, please, sir.
I agree and appreciate a lot of what you have introduced to us.
Thank you so much.
What I'm concerned about in terms of the recommendation, all the recommendations that you have just reiterated is good. But in my mind, have we got people where policies are being made?
Here's what... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, because that is key.
I agree as well.
If you go into the system, we are sending our children into schools where the curriculum is already set up, where it is already decided. You know, we know the Egyptian story and where that goes. And God was in that situation controlling, and he was the one delivering. But we have to be there. We have to turn up. We have to show interest. We have to fight, so to speak, because if you do not do that, you do not get results. And at the same time, too, our children is not going to pick up the right image. As you say, if my dad doesn't care or my mom doesn't care, who's going to care? And then, you know, we get that tangent situation.
I've heard that a lot. Thank you so much. I actually disagree with you in that I look for where things seem to move. I'm not a patient person. I ain't waiting until 2080. I want results now. And the places where the results, you can get them now, and you can have influence without having to work and spend the next 30 years trying to get somewhere, is schools. Because I notice it when the dads are there, when the dads turn up, when the uncles turn up, it makes a difference. It just does. Because you can see it in the kids. You can see it in their results. You can see it in their attitude. It's just not the same. And the other is places like sports days, things to do with the court system, because I meet people, particularly social workers and stuff like that, and they say to me what some of the dads do, and the uncles and the grandparents. Do you know how many grandparents are looking after kids? Some of you in this room, you will be shocked how many grandparents have had to take custody of children. And the only reason why they have those kids is because they were lucky enough to have the time to fight to get the kids. And so, and they got it. It worked. And now they're able to bring this young person up, influence them, support them.
Hello, can I just say one thing?
I also
Sorry,
think
if you could just make it quickly.
yeah, it's really
yes.
quick because I didn't really finish when I was talking at the first time.
Sorry.
Social interaction with youth groups. We had a lot of positive projects running through our systems, and they've been cut back, and that helped a lot of our young people from preventing them. It's like a prevention from getting into problems as well. Social and outreach services for young people.
Mentoring.
Yeah,
Mentoring.
so that's it. I wanted to get that bit.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. So I was just saying that's it for the questions.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, everybody. I really, really appreciate it. I hope it's helped in some way. I know there are some things you're not going to like or take. They're not really useful, but I hope something has been useful and can support you. Yeah, thank you.
Could we give Cassim a round of applause? We just want to say thank you very much, Cassim, on behalf of Brixton Church. We want to welcome you in our house.
Thank you.
You have shared your experience, you have told your story, you have told your journey, and you made it vulnerable for us. And it's good that you can share your story and still here accomplish. There's hope for people who have been through trauma and all in their life and can come out to something good. You have the ambition, you dedicate yourself, even though you have stepped back and all of that, you still press on because you want to become something. And I want to ask God to continue to lead your life, and you have to ask God to be a center of your life so you can continue to help others, because a lot of black young boys need people like you. And because the homes are missing that, that's why most of them join gangs, because they don't have any further love. And so, on behalf of Brixton Church, we just want to thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Continue to do the work and let God lead your life so you can help and be the change in this country, because we really need men like you to stand up and be counted. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Oh, that's for me.
Yeah, that's for you.
Thank you very much.
And I hope that you will come back again.
Oh, thank you. I will definitely come back again.
Thank you so much again, Cassim.
No, thank you.
And I think that was a lot of really good information, very valuable information, and I'm sure you still have questions, and Cassim will be around, right after, so feel free to come and speak to him if you need to, but we're going to wrap up. And just to say, it's good to know that we can hear, from a professional standpoint, someone who has been there, who has experienced it himself, and to also guide us. And I think one of the points that you made, I liked all the points, but it's just the fact that you're saying, our kids aren't generally going to want to come to us readily. And of course, those of us who are in education, we see it every day. The parents are never the ones who the kids go to say certain things to. But what we can do is we can direct them to an avenue where they can go, they can speak, and we can also start or begin to have those conversations, or have that open mindset to facilitate the conversations. Because you'd be surprised, when you say something to them and you don't react in a very negative way, then they're like, okay, I could share a bit more. So they're going to tease you with a bit of information, and eventually we do hope that we can get to that stage. And it's not just for you to support within your homes, but we do have vulnerable children here in church as well who need our support. And while they may not speak to their parents, you could be the aunties and the uncles here in church that they trust and that they share a lot of information with as well. So it has been very informative. And just to close on a spiritual note, I do agree that when someone is going through some sort of trauma or stress, sometimes the first thing we tend to want to do, in a traumatic situation, we want to first of all present a scripture to them. And while it is helpful and it has its place, we have to just be mindful of how we approach it as well. But still, we're not excluding it, and we're saying it's good. So I found a few of them, and these deal with stress and anxiety. So just in case you want to quote them, after you've listened and you've given all the support that you can give, this can be the cherry on top, that little icing to ground them and remind them that, listen, don't lose hope. So let me see how many of them you know. So Matthew 6:34, what does it say? Let's see if anyone remembers. Matthew 6:34, what does it say? Therefore do not worry about what? Tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about its own things. And it says, sufficient for the day is its own trouble. And 2 Timothy 1 verse 7 says what? This is one of my favorite. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. Isaiah 41:10 says what? Fear not, that's the one. For I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Now let's choose one more. Philippians 4:6-7 says what? Be anxious, that's the one. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. So we do have many of them, and I'll just end with this one. I was going to end with that one, but this is one I want to remind all of you of as well. And I know the session can also be triggering for those of us who have children who are experiencing, any sort of issues, or family members, or, even experiencing things yourselves, especially trauma which you haven't dealt with as a child. So this one is just for all of us. Cast your burdens on the Lord, and he shall sustain you. He shall never permit the righteous to be moved. So I do hope it was enriching. I do hope you have been encouraged. And I do hope that as you go through this week, you can, reflect upon the words that you've had just now and use these texts as encouragement for you to propel you, to push you even further than you have been. And just remember that there is help. It's available. It's just for you to find it. But there are so many resources, so many avenues that you can go through to access help if you need it. And most of all, don't forget to pray. Amen? So stand with me. We will close with prayer. Let us pray. Father, we want to thank you for the day that we've had. We want to thank you for this session. Lord, it has been so informative. These are words that many of us, had we not been here, we wouldn't have even known. We wouldn't have even understood that there's help available for us or for our children or for our nephews and nieces. So, Lord, we thank you for the words that you've sent. We thank you for the information that we now have. We thank you for Cassim and his ministry as well, and we do hope that as he continues, you'll be with him. May you continue to empower him and enrich him so that he can continue to reach to our young people who are so in need of help. We understand how damaged our world is, and Lord, we understand that we can't look to man for this problem to be solved. We can only look to you. So, Lord, as we reflect upon how good you have been, help us to just be grateful and have a heart of gratitude that in spite of everything that has happened to us in the past, in spite of everything that has happened within our lives, dear Father, we can still look forward to a day where there is no trouble, where there is no pain, where there is no stress, where there is no anxiety, when we don't need to worry about our children or what they'll hear at school or what they'll experience with friends, but that day when we can be assured that any word that they'll hear will be a good word from you. Oh Lord, what a day that will be. May you be with us as we go through this week. May our troubles and our cares be set aside, and may we focus upon you. And may as we go through the week, Lord, when the troubles and the trials come, may we just remember to keep ourselves grounded in you. Be with us as we go. And we thank you for your Sabbath day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. May the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. All right, so I don't know how long you'll be able to, maybe harass Cassim for, but he'll be here. But thank you very much, everyone.